One of the things is figure it out now, figure out what tools you can use today to get to accomplish what you want, but also know that in the future that may actually be implemented and that helps you reduce that over time. But so that's what we've just shared. That's what we've seen over time too. Some of the hacks that we did a year ago or even 6 months ago, we can now are not hacks anymore. They're just natively built.
GTM AI podcast with Jonathan Moss and Coach K. Tune in now, don't delay. Catch the future on display.
Regardless of if you are just beginning or you've started or you're advanced, we wanted to share this to make sure everyone was on the same playground as far as their knowledge, experience, capabilities before we started the class. Let's do it. All right. So first topic that we're going to talk about today. So there's going to be a few topics. So I'll give you the kind of agenda real quick of what we're going to do. So the first one is going to be prompting. And so what I'm going to take you through is, how to think about prompting in a structured way. And we're going to talk about images. So how to generate images for different use cases, et cetera. And he's going to take you through that. Then I'm going to go through data analysis. So a way to actually visualize data, compile data, aggregate, and get insights from it. And he's going to take you through presentations, how to create beautiful presentations. He actually said something before we started recording. So I'm actually going to learn something today. So excited about that. I'm going to take you through a simple workflow of how to think about workflows using AI and agents. And I'm going to go through prompting. So previously, before LLMs got a lot smarter, there were these frameworks to where you're talking about you needed to tell the AI what role to take and assume and all these things. But the LLMs have gotten so good now, you don't need to do that anymore. And so thinking about what's important for prompting. So this is a 5-part framework here that you can think about that's important that you'll get your best outputs. So the first part is objective. So you want to explain what success looks like. So defining clear, measurable outcomes. So example of that would be, I want to get 10,000 signups, 1,000 paid customers in 6 months with a CAC of less than $150. So establishing what success looks like. That's important context to the LLM so they know what you're looking for, and everything they do is focused on how can you achieve that success. So that's step one. Step two is constraints. So what must and must not happen? Think about this as what the scope is, maybe potentially what your budget is, or what are some of the limitations that you have. Again, this is good context to have, because otherwise, if you don't share those constraints, then the LLM will just go and be unconstrained and give you an output that you may be like, well, I can't do this, or I can't hire 20 people. And that may be the output that you get. Maybe the output is I only have budget to hire 5 or something like that. So an example of that could be, I want to target SMBs of 50 to 500 employees in the tech marketing sector. So a segment, North America only, data from the last 12 months. So again, you're giving the LLM constraints, so you're narrowing in exactly what you're looking for. The third is inputs. So what data can you provide, whether it's assumptions because you don't have the data, or it's actually documents like a product one-pager, market research report, a budget, something like that. So these, again, are key context for the LLM and the prompt to ensure it knows exactly what it's working with. Fourth is the output. So exactly what is it that you want the output to be? So think of this as, I want a 2,000 to 3,000 word GTM plan in a professional tone with sections, target audience, value prop, pricing, channel, KPI. So what is it that you're looking for from the output from the LLM? And then finally is an evaluation. So I think this is important, because one of the things, Andy, you and I have talked about, and we've actually shared this in some of our sessions, whether it's the monthly roundtables or the other workshop that we did, was you never want to take the first output at face value. So you want to check it, or you can even have the LLM check it for you. So in this scenario, you're actually adding in there that you want it to check its own output to verify that it stayed inside of the constraints, the inputs, it accomplished the objective, et cetera. So an example of that could be check the budget alignment, consider competitive launch scenarios, ask about existing partnerships, et cetera. And again, in that prompt, you're already putting that self-evaluation framework in there. So example of what that could do. So I just did an example, and we don't have to go through all of this, but you can see that it's got an objective. So develop a comprehensive go-to-market strategy for launch. Constraints, here are some of the constraints that you have. So here's what you must do, must not do, sources, recency, scope. The inputs, so I'll be providing a product marketing one pager, a market research report, etc. Here's the output that I want with the length, tone, schema, and here's the evaluation hook. So I want you to do a self-check. I want you to think about edge cases and then actually here's some clarifying questions. So that's an example of how you can get started with a prompt and get them the output you desire. And so to your point, take the screenshot. If you noticed, and I'm glad you actually brought that up, I actually created all of this, what you just seen in Menace. And what I said was, I want you to use this prompt framework, and then I want you to create an example of a go-to-market prompt. So actually what you saw was not me manually doing this. It was me just providing Manus with the prompt framework that I just showed you and asking them to create a prompt. So whether you've got the image, whether you tell it what to do, or also, if you are a Claude user, and we'll get to this probably in some of the classes, and you're familiar with skills, you can actually have Claude just create a skill to do this automatically. And that's something that if you don't have Claude and don't have skills, don't worry about it. We'll share that with you, but that's also other ways that you can think about doing as well. So now we're going to do a little bit of data analysis. So one of the things, this was actually one of the first major use cases that I started using back in probably 2022, early 2023, because my life depends on data and understanding it and having a bunch of information come together. So what I want to share here is an example of what you can do with data analysis. So the first thing that you'll notice here is I have two Excel spreadsheets, and they're both from HubSpot. So they're just two extracts from HubSpot. Now, before I go further, what I will tell you is if you do have a HubSpot instance set up that you want to use, Claude, ChatGPT, Manus, a lot of the tools that you're using today, they have what are called connectors. So you can see here at the bottom, and you can go into manage connectors. You can see here I've got like my Google Drive, a Canva, Notion, Calendar, and Gmail set up. But what you can go into connectors and do is there's actually a HubSpot connector in there. I don't have a HubSpot connection or a HubSpot instance, but if you do, you can go in and connect it and it will actually pull this data from your HubSpot instance. Or if you don't, you can just extract spreadsheets. So for this scenario, I've got two spreadsheets. What you'll notice is that I use just a simple prompt. The reason that I used a simple prompt here and not the prompt that we shared with you earlier is because I've already created what we were talking about. So I've already created a Claude skill. And that Claude skill has it's a data analysis Claude skill. And so it's going to do all of this for me so I don't have to go through the prompt framework. And I think that's important because, again, as Andy mentioned, whether you share the image, I could have shared the image here and said, use this prompt framework to analyze this data that's attached. So that's one option, or you could just prompt it, or there's other things like skills, or you could create a custom GPT, things like that. So anyways, there's multiple options, but I just wanted to share, that's why I didn't use a full prompt here. So what I did was I shared, please analyze the CRM data, provide 2 years of trends, key insights, and next best actions that you would recommend, and provide visualizations to bring your analysis and insights to life. So very simple, something that you would ask someone to do or you would think about to do yourself. So what it did was it analyzed all this information, and here's what it came up with. It said, hey, critical alert, your revenue is declining by 42% and win rates are dropping. That's not good. And then basically it says, bottom line, your sales organization needs an immediate intervention, and gives me some details. And then it gives me some visualizations. So it gives me an executive dashboard visualization here that shows me the win rate, revenue, average deal size, and some information. One thing I'll share with you is these aren't great visualizations, and I'm going to get to that in just a second to make them great. It'll give me a 2-year trend analysis. So you can see monthly closed revenue trends in the last 2 years, quarterly deal volume on closed one, quarterly win rates, and revenue by product. So it's giving me these kind of additional insights here to look at in the visualization. It also did a segment and regional analysis for me. Where am I doing well in my segments? Is a region outperforming others? What's the average deal size by segment? And then here's my industry count. And then the final thing it provided for me was a view of my sales efficiency and deal characteristics. So you can see that it provided a lot of this insight. So it provided me insights like, hey, alert, here's where you should look. Then it provided me visuals. Then it said, okay, here are your top 3 insights: quarterly revenue down, win rate deterioration, concentration risk. So basically gave me that. Then it said, okay, here's what I recommend you do: audit your or week 1 emergency response, stabilization, et cetera. So it gave me a detailed breakdown. Then what it did was it created this executive report. So now I have visualizations. So I have a TLDR of what's going on. I've got visualizations. And then also it gave me a detailed executive report that I could use if I wanted to share this with someone or I wanted to have details. So that's what it did to basically be able to give me all of those different insights very simply. And just think about that one little prompt like that. And it gave me all of this in just basically in a few minutes. Now, the one thing I didn't like about this, as I mentioned, was I didn't like the way the images were done. And I was like, because it looks very basic. Like I wouldn't share that with anyone. It's good for me to just get a visual of it and understand, but I wouldn't share that. So I said, can you build me an interactive dashboard with this information? So what it did was it actually did that. And then this is what the interactive dashboard looks like. So now I actually have this better looking information here that is actually interactive, and I can go and I can click on it and look at it. And it's got these tabs up here where I can go and see my quarterly trends. I can look at that segment information and hover, the regional information and the breakdown, et cetera. And then it actually created my action plan for me in this as well. So now I actually have a better version that's interactive, and I can actually download this, or I can publish it. So I can download it and send it. And this is probably a better view for me to do that. Or I can publish it. And then when I publish it, it creates a link. And in that link, I can just share that out and anyone can access it, regardless of if they have Claude or not. It just basically creates a URL that you can use. So as you can see, like very simply, you can get all of this information from data. Again, whether it's an Excel or whether you're connected to your CRM, whether it's Google or ChatGPT or Claude or other things, they just implemented it into the tool. Of course. So one of the things is figure it out now, figure out what tools you can use today to accomplish what you want, but also know that in the future that may actually be implemented and that helps you reduce that over time. But so that's what we've just shared. That's what we've seen over time too. Some of the hacks that we did a year ago or even 6 months ago, we can now are not hacks anymore. They're just natively built. So what they are though, is they're these no code workflow tools where you can say, hey, I want to automate something, or I want to use AI or build an agent to accomplish a task for me or a job to be done. And what these tools allow you to do is they give you templates or they give you a blank canvas, and you can create a simple workflow. Like if I get an email, I want you to have AI read the email for me and basically come up with a response based upon that email. Then I want it to put it in my drafts and then I'll review it. That's a simple workflow. You can actually build that in Zapier. You can build it in Make. You can build it in N8N. And so these workflow tools allow you to not only just automate stuff, but you can connect to LLM. So you can connect to if you use Claude, if you use ChatGPT, some of them have their own ability, have multi-model selection inside of them. So you don't need your own like API key and things like that. But then you can then either build an agent or just use basic LLM prompts in order inside of your workflow to again help you accomplish something. So those are what those tools are built for or meant for. And typically you see RevOps using them a lot, or even some more technically centered marketing or sales or customer success to build workflows. The rise of the GTM engineer using Clay and they use a lot of these workflow tools, but they're just super impactful to just automate your life or automate routine tasks and things that you want to do. So those are what those tools are. Andy and I, while we started with those tools, I wanted to share something a little bit different. And again, if you're N8N or Zapier or Make, or you want to get into that realm and that world, you'll learn how to build agents and things like that using those tools in this class. For today, I've always had this vision and know that you'll be able to create and do simple workflows by just asking an agent or asking a tool like Menace or ChatGPT or Claude or something to be able to do it for you. And so for those of you that feel daunted, some of like even I did when I started learning those tools, I wanted to show simple workflow that you don't have to use any of those tools.
Yeah.
Menace, for those just got acquired by Meta, it is a really great tool to use. But ultimately, what it's built on the back end is it has all these agentic capabilities with AI agents in the background that will do things on your behalf. So what I'm going to show you here is a workflow scenario where I wanted to do a competitive analysis of competitors in the patient engagement market. And so I listed those competitors out. I wanted to then create a detailed analysis of how they compare to Experity's patient engagement care agent price. By the way, I work at Experity, so this is why I did this. The feature, functionality, impact, interoperability, implementation, etc. So that's step 2. So do the competitive analysis, create the detailed analysis. Then I want it to build an infographic, a slide deck, and an interactive website. So I'm gonna have it build all 3 of those things based upon the information that it got. Then I want it to send an email to my good friend Andy here with the executive summary and attach that infographic and deck to the email. And then I also wanted to set up an email set up a meeting with Andy for 3 p.m. to discuss that. So you can see competitive analysis, create the details, build out multiple content documents, including a website, send an email, and then also set up a calendar invite. So that's the workflow. That's all I did was prompt it to do that. Now, the cool thing about Menace and most of these is it'll actually show you what it's doing. So here is the actual infographic that it created. And let me zoom in a little bit. So it's actually not too bad. Oops, sorry. So you can see patient engagement platform, competitive analysis, Experity versus market leaders. It took all of the ones that I mentioned here and brought in their target market and their key differentiators here in the middle. It gave me a price comparison bar based upon what it found online, a feature comparison matrix over here on the right side with certain things, what impact metrics were showcased by these brands on their website, and then gave me a target market, an interoperability score, and then the key takeaways here at the bottom. So again, did the research, created the analysis, built me an infographic to share. So I thought that was actually pretty darn good for the first time. Then it's going to build the slide deck. So you can see here, it shows me what the slide outline is. And then it actually built me a slide deck. So you can see, and I won't go through each slide, but you can kind of see it built me a slide deck based upon all this information. It was prepared for Andy.
Yeah, I love it.
It actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
What's cool about Menace and like GenSpark and some of the others is that you can actually go in here and edit these when it builds it. And I think that's an important piece too, right? Is it doesn't just create you a PowerPoint or a PDF output. You can actually go in and edit the slides if you want to. You can also use this function over here to tell you what you want it to do differently. So you can use AI to edit it, or you can edit it yourself. And as Andy's mentioned a couple times, I did not give it a brand style guideline. You can give it to it and it'll actually do within that brand style guideline. So it created this presentation. Now what it did was it's going to build an interactive website. So it did basically use the presentation, the analysis, et cetera, and it built this interactive website. So now I have this as
cool.
A website that I can then post or I can publish, or a lot of times what I'm seeing is this kind of trend going towards, instead of using PowerPoint and stuff, sometimes maybe you just use these interactive websites as your presentation. And so this can be a living digital asset that you can use for multiple different ways, depending upon how you want to do that. But it created this, and then again, I can just go and publish this, and then I can restrict it if I want or whatnot, and then I can share that out. And anyone who has that link will be able to access that website. So we've researched the competitors, we've created an analysis, we went through, now we have an infographic, a slide deck, and a website. Now, okay, great. Also in Menace, it's the same thing, and you'll find that with all these tools, is you can connect to different things. So you'll see here, I've got it connected to my email, Google Calendar, etc. So what it does is it then goes into and starts using my Gmail. It drafts the email here. Now, the one thing you'll notice here that I would have to work on knowing this is I don't like these stars, so I need to tell it to delete these, but ultimately You can see the point here. So it drafted the email for me to look at, and it included both the attachments that I wanted it to include. You have two options in these workflows. The first option will be it will just pause, and you have to authorize to send. So it's not just going to send on your behalf automatically. But if you want it to do that, when you go to authorize, you can say you don't need it to ask you anymore. So it's up to you how you want to do that, but it will ask you to authorize the send so you can have a chance to review it, etc. So now that it's sent, the final step was to schedule a meeting with Andy. So basically, you can see this, it connected to my Google Calendar. It said review patient engagement competitive analysis. It set up a time for 3 p.m. I did this yesterday. So it set up a time for Andy for today. And it gave a little bit of an agenda, which is great. Heck, even most of the meeting invites I get don't even have an agenda. So this does an agenda for you already, which is nice. And then I'm going to flip back over here. What you'll see is I've got this calendar invite, patient engagement for today at 3, and then it sent to Andy with the agenda. So it did send all of those things. So that gives you an example, again, from a simple, I'll scroll back up to the top real quick, a simple prompt of, I want you to do this and this. So 5 steps of something that is common that we do today in a workflow. You can have Manus or others, you just prompt it and it can do, and as long as it's connected to those tools, it can actually complete that workflow for you by you just telling it what you want it. And that example that I just shared with you, the great thing about ChatGPT and Manus and other tools is you can ask it to create this as a reoccurring task. And so what that will do is say, hey, I want you to do this every month at the beginning of the month or whatever it is. And so to your point, so this could be a one-time thing, but if you want it to be a reoccurring thing, you can actually do that as well. And I think that's an important distinction, that you have that option in some of these tools to do both. So I'd just say, as we've mentioned a few times, the biggest thing is you just got to go experiment. So invest in yourself. Experiment with the tools to see what they can actually do. And the way to do this is just think about the things that you do every day and what are whether it's at work or at home, and figure out the ways that you can use these tools to make your life easier, your life better, and save you a bunch of time. And I think that's the key here. Is you just gotta try it and dive right in.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.